So thank you, Dr. Ramachandra, Vinoth, if I may, for this insightful presentation. As you can see, it struck a chord with our audience here in the room today, and I'm sure online as well. Our paths have crossed several times over the years, so it's a privilege to offer a response to your paper on this occasion. Before I do so, I would like to give a shout out to the 400 or more people who are active on Hoover for these lectures at the moment, and especially to our friends at Pentecost University, Accra, Ghana, and at the Asian Theological Seminary in Manila, Philippines, who, like here in Pasadena, are gathering in person in those places to participate. So now I would like to reinforce some of Dr. Ramachandra's key points and then make a few comments of my own. Dr. Ramachandra presents evangelism as living out the gospel as Jesus lived it, healing the sick, casting out demons, befriending the outcasts, forgiving sinners, loving enemies, and preaching the arrival of God's kingdom to the poor. He sees evangelism and socio-political action as going together in Jesus' ministry, and he blames the separation of these on Christendom, which distorted the gospel because the church was no longer distinct from the political powers and so could not challenge them. Whereas Christians who live, as he does, in multi-religious societies as minorities, ultimately, and I quote, bring to society a radical love for the stranger, a hospitality and generosity towards those who are different. For authentic mission, Dr. Ramachandra advocates dialogue, which is incarnational in that it involves listening and learning, as well as speaking and mutual hospitality. Dialogue is also contextual. It is to live by the terms set by the other. Dialogue is an attitude, a way of life that is interpersonal and brings communities together, for example, but for collaboration in social projects. Dr. Ramachandra argues that Christians should be pilgrims as well as citizens. And I quote, immersing themselves boldly yet humbly in conversations in secular workplaces and the public arena, taking them in a different direction. And theologically, he says, we do not take Christ into these conversations. It is he who draws us in. We discover Christ there and then articulate his presence with courage, clarity, and relevance. Dr. Ramachandra is critical of some forms of evangelism, not only from the West, but also in and from the majority world. Missions in the global South that have adopted Western styles of aggressive evangelism and a join our church approach, for example. Enthusiasm about the role of migrant churches in mission may also be misplaced, he thinks. And he worries that insider movements may encourage individualism rather than Christian community and social engagement. So in sum, I appreciate Dr. Ramachandra's willingness to call out un-Christ-like approaches to evangelism wherever they are found, and his advocacy of a dialogical approach that is contextual, as Jesus Christ himself was. I agree that we see in Christ's mission not a model of successful enterprise by worldly standards, not slick, unfailing evangelistic methods, but a life of sacrificial service and prophetic challenge on behalf of the world that he passed on to his disciples. However, I do have 3 suggestions for the paper, which will soon become a chapter in the conference publication. First, I would like to hear more concrete examples of how Christian communities today, especially where they are minorities, are evangelizing in Christ-like ways and of how dialogue is effective in witnessing to the gospel. While criticism and deconstruction are important, I wish that the paper itself was more dialogical. This would make its argument stronger. Secondly, as someone who studied Christian theology from the Indian subcontinent, I was surprised to find that Dr. Ramachandra's citations are all from Western men, or white men at least. I hope I'm right in saying that it is not necessary to make the case at Fuller in this way anymore, although it has been, and I can understand why it is necessary sometimes. I've argued elsewhere that the approach of dialogue in interreligious relations actually originates in the Indian subcontinent with missionaries and indigenous Christian experience. So as I was reading the paper, I thought I was also hearing the voices of such leading theologians as D.T. Niles from Sri Lanka, M.M. Thomas and Stanley Samata from India. And so it would be great if such sources were also cited. And then third, Dr. Ramachandra unilaterally condemns something that's called Christendom. I would like to suggest that it's a bit more complex than that. Yes, on the one hand, medieval Christendom suppressed religious diversity, expelled or forcibly converted Muslims and Jews, and then tried to do the same thing to others globally through brutal colonization. Obviously, there was something seriously wrong, something evil. But on the other hand, the Christianization of Europe resulted from exactly the deep dialogue of gospel and culture there, and the readiness of Christians to be socially and politically engaged that Dr. Ramachandra praises. And even in Christendom, there were always Christians who cared for the poor, challenged injustice, and called society to Christ-like living. So contrary to the second quote used from Jacques Ellul, I believe that living in a society that calls itself Christian can actually heighten awareness of wrong and breed a desire to be more Christ-like. And I'm going to offer a personal illustration of this as I bring this to a close. My Victorian grandmother, born in England in 1893, was from a humble background, and she was committed to her Protestant church, to supporting women's missions, and to serving others all her life. But I, as a new, thoughtless teenage evangelical, asked her directly one day, "Are you a Christian, Grandma?" I was expecting that if she was really a Christian, she would tell me the date of her conversion and confess to a set of beliefs. So her reply puzzled me. "Well, I try to be a Christian," she said. I didn't like that at the time. But on reflection, I realized that being in Christendom, she was already a Christian in name, but she was trying to live up to that. Having that identity, she was concerned to act on it. So my grandma lived in a moral and ethical way, striving to follow Christ by loving her neighbor and practicing the golden rule. Do as you would be done by, as she would say it. She was an example of true faith in late Christendom. Of course, she was in a minority, even though the churches were full. Dr. Ramachandra stresses Christ-like witness. Similarly, the Cape Town commitment from the Lausanne Congress in 2010 emphasizes that participation in the mission of God is by following the example of Jesus. And therefore, it is an expression of love and characterized by humility, integrity, and simplicity. This is true wherever in the world we evangelize. Thank you.